Hello everyone. Today I would like to talk about the Cyclops module by LZX Industries. It's a weird and unusual module because instead of producing audio, it can connect to a laser projector via this LDA interface. And what it can do is it can visualize the frequencies that oscillators and LFOs produce. You can send those frequencies in here, and then it will draw those frequencies with a laser projector, creating, in my opinion, great visuals. And I feel there's not enough about this module on the internet, so I'm going to do a quick demo, explanation, and review. Let's get going. To use this module, you need to connect a laser projector to the module with this plug. It can control laser projectors that are capable of 3 colors, red, green, and blue, but I got a very cheap one that was only 180 euros, and that can only do red and green. And the idea is that a laser projector projects a point, a laser, and you can control the X position and Y position of that point by sending CV into here, for example, frequencies. Let me show you how that works. Now, just to demo the core principle, I'm taking the triangle output of an LFO and connected to the X input. And as you can see, you briefly saw the laser moving there and switching off again, because this, from the perspective of the laser projector, is still too slow, it's still too dangerous. So I need to increase the frequency of the LFO to get something that the laser projector will accept. And importantly, this button here needs to be set to the interlock position, otherwise the laser projector doesn't receive anything and goes back to his normal demo mode, which is awful. So, going back to interlock, so now we're sending the frequency of this oscillator here into the X input. Now, this is pretty boring, and it stays boring if we send the frequency from the same oscillator to the Y input. Because these are the same frequencies, one on the X and one on the Y, and the one is a triangle and the other one is a sine, what that gives you is simply a diagonal line. Now the point where this gets interesting is where you start sending it frequencies from different oscillators that are a little bit harmonically in sync. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see here, I have 4 LFOs here, another LFO here, and a ring modulator that we'll get to in a second. So let's start off again simple by taking a triangle oscillator, patching it into the Y input, which again gives a horizontal line. And now let's take another triangle oscillator, going quite quickly, and patch that into the Y input. And now things start to get interesting. And what you need to do is you need to kind of find the sweet spots here by getting them in sync, where you will see interesting geometries developing. For example, without a fine-tune knob, this is somewhat annoying. But there you go. See, it's almost a circle, because now the 2 oscillators are just slightly so ever out of tune. And that, especially when they're almost in sync, but not quite, you get interesting effects. So now you have this turning circle. And if you increase the frequency of this one a little bit, it'll start rotating, and then you get these wonderful lissajous geometries that again have sweet spots where the frequencies are divisions of each other, and they will create the illusion of a moving, rotating something. So I think it's quite beautiful. However, it also gets a little boring after a while, because if you just send it to frequencies, there's only so much you can do with that. Although I will say, I think I can already spend quite a bit of time messing around like we're messing around here. Like this, maybe. So what I personally like to do is set one of the oscillators to a relatively low frequency and then increase the frequency of the other. This button here in the middle controls the overall size of the projected image. And with these two here, you can adjust the X and Y position of what you are projecting. And the thing is with these laser projectors, well, in what I'm filming now, the laser is away from the wall maybe 1.5 meters, but the thing is they have such a range. I mean, you can project something like this to the wall of a house that's maybe 100 meters away or something, and it gets really big and it's still really, really bright. Don't try that at home though, it's just a theoretic observation. Where this, in my opinion, this gets really interesting is when you start adding ring modulation. In other words, so if you now further modulate the signals that come in to the Cyclops with further signals. And for that, the absolute best companion to the Cyclops, in my opinion, is the A times B plus C module by Befaco, which basically is 2 ring modulators with attenuverters that multiply 2 frequencies with each other that come in through the A and the B input. And you can actually set the extent to which B multiplies A with this button here, and then you can even add a third frequency to that in a sum-wise way, and then the output goes out here. And you have 2 of those, so this is perfect for the X and Y coordinates. So I'm taking this and plugging that in here into the A input. I'm setting this to 1, so this gets multiplied with 1 if there's nothing patched to B1, and I'm adding nothing with the C set to 0. So basically what I'm putting in here now should be more or less, if I'm taking the correct output, of what we just saw. And I'm now doing the same for the second channel for the Y coordinate. So this goes in here and that goes in there. So where we were before, but now you can see if I'm multiplying the Y signal, so this is multiplied by 1, this is how it was before, this is multiplied by 2, so this is doubling it. And of course I can reduce it all the way to 0 and then invert it in a similar fashion. So basically this gives you a vertical squeeze of the image, and the same is true with the horizontal squeeze if you turn this button. Now this of course gets interesting once you start modulating those. Let me find again a setting where they are a little bit more in sync, so only move ever so slowly, because I found that's always a good starting point for modulating this. So now I'm taking another oscillator, in this case an LFO, and sending that. Let's make this switchable so I can show it a little bit better. So I'm plugging it into a switch and then into the B1, and let's switch that on and see what happens. There you go. And that looks weird, but only as long as you don't tune it or find a kind of a sweet spot that looks good. And this is set to a high frequency. So now the image gets somewhat smaller, so what I'm doing now is I'm turning this up so this gets multiplied even more strongly, and I'm looking for something that will look nice. But what I'm realizing kind of always with these is that they tend to be more beautiful if you use something. Oh well. First of all, they tend to get more beautiful if you use something that's more in audio range and not at the top end of what an LFO can do. So let's do something else. So instead of plugging in an LFO, what I'll be plugging in. Sorry, where was I going? Right here. There. So instead of plugging in this LFO, what I'm doing instead is a little bit off the screen. You can't see it. There's an audio rate oscillator. It's just a Doppler 110, and I'm sending that in now, and I'm turning the tuning knob of that one and see whether we can get something that's a little bit more beautiful. And here we go. Let me increase. No. Yeah, maybe this is nice. Yeah, we are. It's funny how those change. There are, just as is with audio, there are sweet spots. Like here, look at that. Okay, you probably guess where this is going. I'm taking the triangle out from yet another oscillator, another Doppler 110, and I'm sending that into the B2 input of the second channel of the A times B plus C. Let's make that switchable just for fun and switch it on. Ooh, chaos ensues. Let's turn this up a little bit and let's again try and find a sweet spot. There we go. Not quite. Sorry about that. I haven't really rehearsed this very much before filming it. Yeah. So now we have two relatively high frequency LFOs that drive the X and the Y position of the laser, and we have two audio frequency oscillators entering a ring modulation, modulating those signals. And we can maybe now change the coloring on the basis of a slow LFO. So I'm using this one here. I mean, you could probably assume, I'm saying this to low, you could probably imagine this being like the beat or a kick is something that you're taking from an audio track, and then you can use that to bring in green in a kind of rhythmical way, and now you have this kind of blinking pattern. Oh, let's see whether we can find another sweet spot. There. And of course you can take this even further, because to the signal that we're currently seeing you can add a signal that moves this from left to right, and another one that moves that from bottom to top. So why don't we take another oscillator? In this case, let's take another LFO and do that for top to bottom and increase the level, and let's see if we can find another sweet spot. Oh, this is difficult. Maybe this is a little too fast. Let's go a little lower. Whoop. There maybe. Okay. Just a little smaller. And now let's do the same for left to right by plugging in something into the C1. This is interesting. This gives us nothing. What's going on here? Oh, now let's see if we can find a sweet spot. Nah, not really. That's not very sweet, is it? Let's see. Is there something low? No, something in the mid-range maybe. There. So basically this is like painting with sound that we don't hear at this moment. So in a hybrid setup that includes both audio and visuals, what you can do is when you play a song, when you play a track, you can simply take the different tuned oscillators from your setup and send them preferably into one of those to drive a Cyclops, so that you can actually see the geometries that result from the sound that you're playing. Now unfortunately the Cyclops module is discontinued. They don't make it anymore. So if you're lucky you can find one on eBay or Reverb or wherever. However, I recently had a brief conversation with someone at LZX Industries on Instagram, and I asked them, you know, will they revive any kind of module that provides an ILDA interface, and they said yes, they have a new upcoming module called the Cro-Magnon, I believe. I hope that's pronounced correctly. Cro-Magnon. I'll put a link in the description below. That will actually feature 2 of these ILDA outputs, so that you can drive 2 laser projectors at the same time, and it will already have a lot of oscillators and modulation sources built in, so you can actually do these things with that module in a standalone way. But there's also a myriad of possibilities to patch that thing. I'm really looking forward to investigating that a bit further. I have the feeling though that it was going to be quite expensive, so let's see. Well, until then, let's enjoy a few more seconds of crazy 90s laser visuals with the Cyclops.